Welcome back to Top Shelf EDU. I'm here with Mathieu Graham, who just completed his second year at the Sauder School of Business at the University of British Columbia. Welcome, Mathieu. How are you?
I'm doing well, and thank you for the invite, Miss Lee. I'm happy to be here and share any insights I can give on my time at UBC.
Yeah, that's so great. So I guess we're going to start with the program because I know you had several offers to study commerce at, the top universities. What made you choose UBC Sauder?
I think for me specifically, what stood out for UBC was it was close to my family first off. So I'm from Victoria, and so it's only a ferry ride away from home. Also, the campus itself, it really cannot be beat in terms of the environment there. It's an amazing campus. It's so pretty. The greenery is awesome. It's also great weather. We didn't get any snow here, which if you're a big skier, that you might not be a big fan of that. But otherwise, I really enjoy the campus, and it's been great so far.
Yeah, that's great. I know we came on campus earlier in the spring, and I was blown away. It was the first time I've been on campus, and it's so beautiful. And like you said, moving out here myself from Ontario, you really can't beat the weather. So it's one of those things. If you want to get away from the snow, it's definitely a great spot to be. What has your academic experience actually been like compared to what you thought it might be going to UBC?
Yeah, so I feel like unless you took many, I didn't take many APs in high school at Smooth, so I wasn't too sure what it was going to look like. But when I initially got there, I was like, you know what, I will just try to put my best foot forward and do my best in all my classes that I can. And it came down to really just ensuring you put the proper time in that for your classes. So for me personally, my academic experience, I'm specifically going to specialize in finance and accounting, so it's a pretty hefty workload. But just ensuring that you put the hours like outside of classes, they recommend 2 to 3 hours outside of for each hour of class. So just that's something that I did, and I led to my personal success. So I'm sure that like and others can also attest to that as well.
Okay, that's great advice and something for students to think about as they're going in there for sure. Now, what about your classes? Are when you started your first year, were there more lectures? Were they small group discussions? Is it hands-on learning? Can you walk me through the first 2 years and kind of how it is and maybe how it changed throughout that time?
Yeah, so during my first year, a lot of the lectures were very heavily participation based. And I feel like they really, it's your first time there. They want to give you more of an incentive. They want you to go to class, right, and meet other students there as you should. So in first year, it's mainly circled around like, a lot of participation in many of my classes. And then with the transition to second year, it was more on you to go to classes and less participation heavy, and so as for hands, I would say a lot of hands-on at first, just to ensure that you really get the content. And specifically for business, they want to ensure that you understand all the different types of and different applications of business. So in that sense, that's why it's important to have a lot of hands-on learning when you initially start off.
Yeah, for sure. Now, in terms of the assessments, coming from high school, you generally have a lot of assessments, so you have a lot of opportunities to do things. Is it the same at UBC Sauder, or is it more weighted heavily in like final exams? Do you have case bases? How does that actually work?
Yeah, so it depends on the class, but I would say like that was a really big shock to me was the waiting on the final exam. So some of them were 50%. And in some classes as well, if you don't pass the final, you don't pass the course. They really want to make ensure that okay, this student is good to go on and continue his learning. So that was a really big shocker to me. And that's why like midterm and final grind at UBC is very intense for everyone there, because it can come to a point where your final midterm could be worth like 85% combined. So it is a significant chunk of your grade.
Yeah, I think that's something, from talking to several alumni, that's something that really surprised them as well. Just, how heavily weighted those are and how, I guess, significant the final exam could be. Do you find the professors or TAs, are they approachable or are you kind of just like, can you see them outside of the classroom or can you approach them at the end of class? How does that work?
So there's always an opportunity at the end of class to approach the professors. Now, if you're in a large lecture hall that might have, say, 400 students, it might be a little bit more difficult. Some of my courses specifically had smaller classes, and specifically in business, something I like learned early on was they really do want to connect with you. So even it came to profs at the end of class sharing their LinkedIn's and whatnot just to connect in the future because they want to see how you do early on. And one of my profs this year actually mentioned like he may not be great himself, but his goal is to teach someone great and to have those connections and eventually see, hey, what do my students become? I'm sure that's a very fulfilling thing for any professor to see that. So NTAs as well, they have their specific office hours where they're available to go in. Overall, there's a lot of support whether you want to go to a professor or a TA for help.
Okay, that's really good to know. I guess the other thing, it kind of leads me into other opportunities because when you either apply to grad school or if you want to get a co-op or an internship, those references and opportunities to understand and meet your professors are going to be really important. What what opportunities for co-op or internship do you have in your first couple of years? Is there an opportunity or is it more in your third or fourth year?
So there are opportunities. In first year, it's a little bit tricky. So typically you would do it over your first year summer. It's hard to get picked as a first year because you're fresh from university. You've just done your first year and you still have a lot of learning to do. So in your second year though, they allow you to apply for co-op. So it's not everyone gets co-op. You do have to apply for it. And I believe it's like something like 50% of people do get co-op. And then once you have co-op, then they do give you a lot of support. There are co-op advisors and whatnot to help you along the way. So I'll be working this summer under a co-op as well as an accounting intern. So it's been helpful.
That's great. No, whereabouts is that? Is that local in
Yeah,
Victoria or
it's a
is it
boutique
Vancouver?
firm in Victoria, so it should be a great experience.
Okay, that's great. Now, later on, will that help you with further co-ops? Like, can you study abroad, or is there that opportunity as well?
Yeah, so funny that you mentioned that. I'm going to Denmark, to Copenhagen for my first term next year. So I'm going to a school called Copenhagen Business School. So I think it's going to be that was my top choice. So I'm really glad I'll be going there. It's super close to other European countries, so I'm sure I'll be doing a lot of traveling as well. And they're super big on sustainability and the sustainability and overall like the happiness. If you know if you've heard of like the happiness index, they're like one of the top. I think they're the second or third country happiest in the world based off of that index. So I think I'll learn a lot and I'll see how their society and their culture is. And hopefully I can bring some of those values back here as well into my studying and my academics.
That's great. Congratulations. That's a huge opportunity. And, I think that you'll really enjoy that. And as you said, bring back a lot of not only memories, but skills and I guess perspectives as well. So that's great. When you first arrived at UBC, can you tell me about how they helped you transition in? Is there any traditions? Is there anything that they helped you transition in and kind of get your feet wet to meet other people or to learn more about the university?
Yeah, so there are for business specifically, or let me start off with the more generalized one. So there's something called Jumpstart, which is the generalized orientation program, and it brings together students in similar faculty and also people in similar residences. So if you live in the similar residence, so there are three main undergrad residences, and so it brings together those students. And there are some students who didn't take the opportunity to do Jumpstart because they were like, oh, they already live in Vancouver. There was no reason, but I fully recommend to anyone who's going to UBC to do Jumpstart. I met one of my closest friends there. It really gives you an opportunity to see people who you're going to be close with for most of the year, and you'll have a lot of classes with them as well. And then for business specifically, there was another one called Spark. So it was more business specific people who, but I'm pretty sure other faculties also have their own specific. But for Jumpstart, it was more generalized where you're able to meet people who are living close nearby and whatnot.
Yeah, that's really important, especially if you're coming in, if you're far away or an international student. A lot of the alumni that I talk to, the first thing they say is you got to put yourself out there. You got to meet people. And that's a great way to do it. So I guess if you talked about residents a little bit, do a lot of people live on the UBC campus or is there more commuting first year, second year? How does that look?
So for first year, you have a guaranteed residence. Now, what that looks like, it really depends on what you get. It's a full lottery, so you won't know until you receive that email. But for second year, then it's up to you really on what you're going to get. You can apply for something called winter housing. So that is also a lottery, and it's fully I applied for that, I did not get that. So I lived in a place called Westbrook, which is a little bit off of campus, but still close by, and I was a 10-minute bus ride. I would say the toughest thing is getting on those buses in the morning when everyone has, like, a 9:30 class, and there would be times where there'd be 3 or 4 buses passing by me, and I'm like, "Oh gosh, I might be a little bit late for this class," but so I would say 2nd year, a lot of people do go off campus, and then 3rd, 4th year is where you get something called year-round housing, which is a wait list for and then you have year-round essentially secured, housing for as long as you're at UBC, however many years you're there.
Okay, wow. So with the transportation, do are a lot of people going into Vancouver? Do a lot of people just stay on campus? And how is that transportation? Is it paid for? Is it something you have to purchase separately?
So whether you like it or not, you will get a U pass because it's part of your tuition fees. So since you have it, you might as well use it to its full extent. The transportation on campus is fantastic. Like it's so easy to access downtown, and a lot of the buses they actually end at UBC as well. So many of them from downtown are going all the way to UBC, and that's where they stop because they have a big bus depot there where they let the buses rest and then do another round. In first year, I didn't really go downtown too often because UBC itself is like a little city. You have everything you need, with the dining hall and appliances and whatnot. Second year, I went downtown just to explore a little bit more, and also grocery shopping and whatnot. I had to go away, but otherwise, yeah, I great transportation with the UPass and public transit there.
Okay, that's really good to know for all those students coming in and kind of figuring out how they're going to get around. Now, you touched on this a little bit. The campus vibe, is it social? Is it academic? Is it a little bit of both?
So I would say UBC, from what I've seen from other universities, is more academic, but I feel like it really depends on where you place yourself. Because I'm a strong believer in that. Like you can be more academic if you like, or more social. It truly depends on what your group is. So if you want to be more social, there are definitely more ways you can be more social, more things you can do. But I would say like UBC when it gets to finals and midterm exams, everyone understands how essential those are to people, to the students. So I think we are on the academic side, but we definitely like have our fun as well.
Okay, good. It's always fun to have fun because that's where you make a lot of the memories and a lot of your really good friends as well. Now, if somebody's struggling either academically or with their mental health, what kind of supports does UBC provide and are they easy to access?
Yeah, so academically, it's at least for my faculty, there are people you can go to within the faculty to talk about and maybe make a transition to different course load and whatnot. And they want you to succeed, right? And that's the great thing is they're there to help you. That's why that's their role. So as long as it's up to you to actually go and access those resources. And same thing with mental health. They have many different mental health wellness teachings and whatnot at UBC and different clubs for that too. So the resources are definitely there. I would say it's more just accessing those resources yourself and going out. And if you need that assistance, just ensuring that you go out there because they are advertised and just reaching out if you need that help.
Okay, thanks for that. And I guess one of the things is, for if their student is still deciding whether they're going to go to UBC or another school, what advice would you give them to help them make that choice?
I would say make a list. I would say make a list of pros and cons and just honestly just drum it down to the fundamentals of it. So what do you like about this university? What do you like about that university? And what are the cons of, both? What are the headwinds of both? And so and then I would decide from there. That's the first thing, and then I would talk to other people. So reach out to people who go to the universities, get more insight on, hey, like this is how I think the university is. But if you have an idea, but you haven't really spoken to anyone, you won't know the realistic sense of how it actually is. So definitely reach out to people who have gone to the university. Read online. There are a lot of like Reddit forums and things online that show people who have gone to the university as well. So just I would do your research for sure and make a list and but it has to be your decision end of the day, so make sure you aren't influenced by too many other people, it should come from you, so whatever you pick.
That's great advice. It's sometimes students are making choices because they want to be near friends, because that's what their parents have told them. But ultimately, like you said, it's their choice. And one of the things that I often tell students is, you have three choices as you're applying. Your choices are where you apply, where you accept, and how you show up in the fall to that school. So, I think that one is really important is how you show up. And once you make that decision, go full on and put yourself out there. That's really good. What about the extracurriculars and, opportunities to get more engaged with, clubs or activities? Are there a lot of activities? Is there something there for everybody? Are students able to choose their own or, create a new one? How does that work?
So UBC really prides itself on its student community and their clubs. So I will say there truly is something for everyone. I think over 400 clubs that we have, and it could be literally anything like Taylor Swift fan club, lettuce eating club. Like there are so many random ones that to me some of them don't make sense. But if you have people who want to join, I think the requirement is you need 5 people who want to band together and make a club, and there's a lot of funding for that as well, so it's supported by the student body. So there's a lot of funding, and on the athletic side of things as well, there's a lot of intramural sports, so it's super easy to get involved with different intramural activities like badminton or soccer and whatnot if you don't want to play too competitively. I was on the sailing team, the competitive sailing team in my first year at UBC, and that was a great way. It's a great way to meet people as well because you already have a commonality going into the club because hey, I enjoy this thing. I like doing this thing or talking about this thing. So that's a great way to meet people and make new friends. And I found that was super beneficial for me going into it.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, just a final few more questions, I guess. One of the questions is, what surprised you the most
I think
about going to UEC?
I think what surprised me the most were the amount of opportunities there are. Like I think before in high school there were a lot of opportunities, but in university it's really like you can do anything you want. It like options are essentially limitless, and so just make the most of it and go out, try new things, do whatever, and just take the opportunity if you have it.
Okay. What's the best place to study on campus?
So I I don't know. There are a lot of good places to study. I was in a building called the Forestry Building because it was relatively new and they had an awesome skylight. So I would get like natural sunlight when I was studying, which was pretty sweet. I would say for my finals, I'll go off precedent. So my for this term's finals, I was really studying in a place called IKB, and so it's very Harry Potter themed. If you've ever watched Harry Potter with yeah, it's somewhat of an older building, and so it's also open till like 1 a.m. So I was there
Oh,
studying for a while, but it's nice because everyone else around you is studying, and it's got a nice theme to it, and it's open pretty late, so that was where I would spend a lot of my time during finals and midterm season.
okay. Where's the best place to grab a bite to eat, either on or near the campus?
So I think on campus, I would have to say, I mean, I love Tim Hortons, so I go Tim Hortons quite a bit. There are a few Tim Hortons on campus. I also really like a place called All Osmos where there's a lot of shawarma. There are so many places to eat on campus, and it's so easy. It's relatively cheap as well for what it is. Off campus, I went to a place the other day called Joe's Italian Deli, which was pretty great. So I think there are a lot of places to explore for sure.
Okay, so if somebody likes a variety of food, there's definitely something for everybody.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's yeah. It's
Okay.
something
All right. And then last question. What's one survival tip or piece of advice that you would give somebody who's starting their first year?
I think one thing is just don't stress too much. I know you go in and you're really nervous, but just be yourself. That's a big one because the people who you surround yourself with when you first get there, chances are those people are coming in new as those people as well probably don't know many. So those are going to be your friends for a long time. That's how it was for me. So pick carefully who you surround yourself with and be yourself to ensure that you surround yourself with the best people. And don't stress. A little amount of stress is optimal, but don't stress too much. Just do your best and yeah, that would be my advice. Be yourself.
O- Okay, that's great advice. Mathieu, this was so great. Thank you so much for speaking with me. Um, best of luck next year. Enjoy your study abroad. I can't wait to hear about that when you come back, and we'll keep in touch. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to Top Shelf EDU, your inside look at the university experience. If you found this episode helpful, be sure to subscribe and share it with someone exploring their path to higher education. We'll be back with more insights, stories, and advice to help you navigate your journey. See you next time.